it's a blues drenched hope. It's a hopefulness that is decidedly real, that is realistic in its orientation, because we've had to put so many of our people in the grave over the years. So, I think there's, Jimmy has this line where he talks about, and I paraphrase it in this way, that we have to deal with the fact that we're miracles and sons of bitches at the same time. We got to celebrate the fact that we're miracles and then protect ourselves from the fact that we are these SOBs, right? And so I believe wherever human beings are, we have a chance. Wherever we are, we have a chance. There's no guarantee.
Yes.
And our tradition is testimony to that. So this is where I'm not so, I stand to scans from Afro-pessimism. Our tradition is a testimony to wherever we are, we have a chance. No matter what the world is, no matter what the world says about who we are and how it values us, right? If we stand with a certain kind of presence, if we give voice to the power that's within us, right? We can actually change the world. That's why Demi called us spiritual aristocrats, call those babies spiritual aristocrats, right? And so when you think about that moment, King gets assassinated, Baldwin collapses, falls to pieces. He finds his elsewhere. He goes off to Istanbul. He had been traveling back and forth, but he goes to Istanbul. And in Istanbul, he surrounds himself with friends, and he says, I'm trying to begin again. He's trying to find a language. This is why I think No Name in the Street is his most important piece of nonfiction, because in it, he's experimenting. I mean, the form of the book, Doc, the form is mirrors traumatic memory. It's trying to exemplify trauma and wound. So memories are constantly turning back on itself. Present is returning to past, returning to present. It's doing all of this. He misremembers in the text, right? And what the formal innovations in the book shows up in the novels, the later novels, right? But the way in which he finds his voice, he says, I'm trying to finish what he called, excuse my language, he called No Name this mighty mother, because he couldn't put it together. And when he finally finished it, he finished it in the bosom of love. Community, people who allowed him to laugh, full belly laughs, folk who allowed him to be rageful, right? People who gave him the distance from power. So we got to find our own elsewheres in the midst of the storm, so that we can replenish and regroup and get back in the fight again, to begin again. Because Jimmy fell apart, found a moment of respite, jumped right back in it, right? And so the hope is in us. Wherever we are, we got a chance. But you got to be deliberate and find that community of people, of persons, space that will give you the ability to find that energy again.
Okay.
To find that presence again, if that makes sense. In which, right, we have a moment, even if it's a fleeting moment, to reach for a sense of self, a voice, right, to find the power, and that will be the fuel for the courage to stand in our commitments, right, and to risk everything for a more just world, or Jimmy would say, a new Jerusalem, right? Morehouse is that elsewhere, right? It's that elsewhere. I probably was too young to realize it in those early days, but it created the condition for the possibility for me to deal with myself.
Yes, sir.
And I think at the end of the day, the precondition to say anything substantive about the world without being a fraud, without being susceptible to taking the bribe, the precondition is to deal with the brokenness that is you. Once you grappling with that, not resolve it. Once you start grappling with that, then you orient yourself to the world as it is in a much different way. Every generation, it seems, the serpent of slavery, serpent of white supremacy, threatens to swallow the whole thing up, you know? The serpent of slavery was wrapped around the legs of the table upon which the Declaration of Independence was signed. Right? This valuation of black bodies, this valuation of white bodies, this belief that white people matter more than others, and the lies that we tell ourselves to protect that belief, right, has threatened generations. We've had to raise our babies in this. Baldwin says, and it's such a powerful point, he says, whatever the Negro problem is, we know what it is. We have to try to raise our babies in a world in such a way that they don't believe what the world says about them. And one of the things we have to say to them is that we've never been the N-word. The N-word is your creation, Jimmy intimated. The N-word is your creation. You have to figure out why you needed the N-word in the first place. So I'm going to give the N-word back to you, back to you, baby. Who's the real N-word here? So until we figure out why white America needs this, we will find ourselves repeatedly on this racial hamster wheel. So you're right. This is not, 68 million Americans are choosing this. Yeah. Right? They're doubling down. But you know what also they're doubling down on really quickly, though, Doc? Selfishness. Greed.
Yeah.
They got Lil Wayne and 50 and Lil Pump. They're all exhibit A of greed and selfishness.
Yes,
but
sir.
You got folk who are so invested in their own sense of a company, they just want to extract and extract and extract, that they have no commitment to an idea of the public good. So Donald Trump, as I've been saying over and over again, sits in the sweet spot of racism, greed, and selfishness. That's his energy. That's his fuel. And that's not reducible to him. That's us.